Hey, what's up, guys? It's Adam from Rescue Michigan here once again with the lovely Amber Harris. And I think we are live for the first time on YouTube in well over a week. We were in YouTube jail for saying some things that YouTube wouldn't tell us what they even were, but they were relating to the 2020 election. I don't know if we're going to talk about too much of that kind of stuff tonight. We've got a great show for you tonight. We have obtained multiple documents from prominent Democrat operatives on what their strategy is for the 2022 election cycle, and we are going to go through them and have a lot of, it's going to be insightful, but also a lot of fun because we are going to get to read the strategy documents from the perspective of the commie punks. And in some cases, they aren't dumb entirely. They are blinded by their hatred, but they actually have won an election or two here and there, particularly in your neck of the woods, Amber, unfortunately, although it's not your fault. But they do know how to win elections from time to time. Otherwise, they would be in the dustbin of history. But they also are totally crazy. So we're going to have a lot of fun going through that document, learning from it, though, from what they see as their top priorities. And of course, also seeing what their blind spots are. So before we get started, we like to at least give people a few minutes to catch the show live because people don't just sit idly by their computers waiting for us to start. And we do like to go over a few little news items, and we've got some good ones for you today. First off, small thing, but a funny thing, which is that the prosecutor in San Francisco, who has been basically ignoring all quote unquote petty crimes like, shoplifting, vandalism, malicious destruction of property. Now that the chickens have come home to roost in the wealthy areas of San Francisco, she's suddenly talking like Donald Trump Jr. and saying that these people all got to be put in jail for a very long time. We got a crackdown coming. And it just goes to show you how partisan and personally motivated all these politicians are. And that story has been just hilarious to see. And it's going to play out elsewhere. It's playing out in Minneapolis right now, too, in the Kim Potter trial. And it's just embarrassing. But hey, Amber, don't dox your baby.
I know.
He's a minor.
This is just gonna happen. Yeah, I'm a solo mom tonight, so
you're fine. You're fine. All right. So a couple other the other two little stories we want to get into before we get into the big story, though. First, there has been a huge decision at the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals reversing the Fifth Circuit's moratorium on Joe Biden's vaccine mandate for all of those companies with 100 employees or more. And the upshot of this is this case is going to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's no question about it anymore. Now, if you're wondering how is it that the Sixth Circuit overrules the Fifth Circuit, what happened was the Fifth Circuit's decision was appealed, and the way it works is a random other circuit is assigned to review the decision. That went to the Sixth. The Sixth Circuit, which is based in Michigan and some other Midwestern states who are not important, declined 8-8 to review the case en banc, which means all 16 judges get to weigh in on their opinions. And 8-8, which is a losing, because you have to have majority. 8-8 means you lose. 8-8 said, no, we don't have to have it en banc. Only we're certain the three justices in the Sixth Circuit are going to review the case, and their decision must be great because they're judges. They're all perfect, great people. So it went to three judges, one of whom was a Trump appointee, our own Joan Larson, who was on the Michigan Court of Appeals, appointed by Donald Trump to the Sixth Circuit, and she ruled in favor of freedom. However, the other two, one an Obama appointee, the other a George Walker Bush appointee, did not. So what does that mean? Well, for the time being, tragically, it means that the Biden law is still has now been put back into effect. But what it also means is there's no way the Supreme Court's not taking this case up. There's no way. This has now been a subject of intense controversy. The Fifth Circuit said these are grave constitutional concerns. So I don't know, Amber, if you like to weigh in, although I don't know if you know any better than I do. We're not lawyers.
And I have a screaming kid. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, well, you should do with your screaming kid what I do with my screaming dogs, and that's lock them in a room and leave them to themselves. But anyway, now the point. Look, this is an intensely important judicial question that there's no easy answer to, but. We have 3 reliable conservatives, 3 reliable liberals on the U.S. Supreme Court. It's going to come down to John Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh.
Wait, can you say John Roberts is what?
I put John Roberts in the middle, and that was being charitable. He might be a reliable liberal.
Exactly. That's crazy that you even said that.
Well,
I'm glad my kid quieted down to say that.
you're probably right. It's going to probably take Barrett and Kavanaugh plus the 3 reliable conservatives to overturn it. And I'm not sure about Barrett. I mean, I was sounding the alarm about Barrett when she was just even being discussed as a potential nominee, because in mid 2020, she actually ruled in favor of lockdowns.
Right.
In a very high profile case. It was literally the Republican Party of Illinois suing the governor, Pritzker. And Barrett relied on one of the worst Supreme Court decisions in American history, the Jacobson case, which literally, that was the case that legitimized medical experiments. And she said, oh, yeah, that case is still a good law, which ignores another century of jurisprudence, but there you go. But that was Barrett's position, and that was why I wasn't telling people you got to sound the alarm about this Amy Coney Barrett. But hey, who am I? It went through, it happened, and here we are. But I don't know. Some people were saying that Barrett's remarks in the big Texas abortion case on bodily autonomy suggested maybe she's leaning the other way. So there's that. But
she's always been huge with abortion.
Well. Right, but we don't know that she's going to extend the thinking about, and actually even with abortion, the abortion issue, the way the left portrays it is Republicans are big fat hypocrites about bodily autonomy because they don't think a woman has the right to abort her baby, but they expect that we should not allow vaccine mandates. Right. And you could make, first of all, you can make the exact converse argument. Democrats claim that abortion is bodily autonomy, but they don't care about vaccine mandates. Not all Democrats, but Democrat politicians, especially high-profile Democrat politicians, they're totally in favor of vaccine mandates categorically. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, what that means is that it's not really just because Amy Coney Barrett is pro-life that she is going to be supportive of bodily autonomy on the question of vaccines, because they're supposed to be 2 different questions. Like the idea, and this is a tough thing to explain to a liberal, but the thinking is it's not about body autonomy relating to abortion. It's that the baby's got a life and you can't kill it. No, it's not your body, it's his body, her body, the baby's body. So whether Amy Coney Barrett's going to be on our side or not, we don't know, but we will likely find out one of these days. So anyway, that's a big deal. Very bad in general. The fact that this was even put back into question because the Fifth Circuit had it right in the first place. In the meantime, we're going to have to keep fighting, folks. And by the way, I don't think this case overturns the current pending case law on religious exemptions, which have been doing well in the courts as opposed to other arguments. Not that they all shouldn't succeed. But among the different arguments, natural immunity, the right to your own body, but the religious exemption has done the best. It has fared the best in the courts. Yeah. So that may still be in there. And it probably will be, because
I heard religious exemptions though, like aren't really holding up right now at like employers. They're still
well, the employers are pushing back, but it has been unavailing in the courts. Right. And there's cases right now. In particular, there's a lawsuit against, I think it was Western Michigan University in the Western District, where the judge granted an injunction against the university demanding that they uphold the religious exemption.
Yeah.
And we'll see. I mean, like I said, in my view, whether it's claiming a religious exemption or simply asserting that you have the right to do what you want with your body, which is in a way the same thing, because the religious exemption is not supposed to rely upon the testimony of a pastor or a priest or an imam or anybody. It's your sincerely held religious beliefs, which are your sincerely held moral beliefs. But there's also been medical assertions and people pointing out, hey, I've had COVID. I have better immunity than the people that have the vaccine have. And those, unfortunately, have been unavailing. But either way, all these cases are still pending. There's still, there's like 1,000 lawsuits pending right now on all this stuff. So, but the big development today is that this case is going to be before the Supreme Court. And that's a big thing. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I had to say on that. I just realized I have had my stupid background window open, the thing that's gave us this nice Christmas theme here, and I've been probably missing the chat. So let me go back to the comments. If you guys are watching,
I don't see any comments yet.
If you guys are watching on Facebook or YouTube, say hello. If you're watching on Rumble, I'll need to actually, in fact, I should do that right now. Open the Rumble window just to make sure, because we don't automatically see chats on Rumble. So I've got that window open now. I do see there's some people watching on Rumble. If you want, you can post comments in there. Feel free to say hello, ask any questions. We're going to be talking about these dirty Democrat documents in just a moment here, but we also like to give people a moment to check in, and we have another big story that came up today, and this is, I find, quite hilarious. We also like to give people a moment to, oh shoot, I got to mute my, and what's going on here? Something is
that handsome voice.
This is not good. I find it hilarious. What have I done? Oh shoot, I got to mute my, what's on here? Something is, it's not
voice.
good. I've got 1,000 browser windows open at once. I have to figure out which one it is. I'm going to start just closing windows on Moss. It's not good. I've got 1,000 browser windows open at once. Sorry, guys. These things happen. I'm a boomer.
You're a boomer at heart.
I'm boomering this very badly right now.
Hi, John.
Sorry, guys. These things happen. I'm a boomer. I can't even figure it out.
You're a boomer at heart.
Oh, I'm boomering this. I found it. I found it. Okay. That was painful.
I wasn't doing it.
John Smith says no excuses. You try during the live stream, John Smith. You will see. You will see.
Oh.
It is painful. All right. So we are back. Obviously, we are live on Facebook because we got a comment on Facebook there. So all right, folks, let's get back into it. One more thing before we get into these Democrat Socialists of America documents. I want to talk about some gun rights legislation. Well, I should say anti-gun rights legislation that's been really ramping up in Lansing. And we did a stream the other day with Shane. We were talking about this, and I expressed that there was very positive, hopeful news coming from the Republican leadership in both chambers, particularly from Mike Shirkey, saying these bills are all dead. They're going nowhere. And that's a good thing. I mean, I don't like to mobilize everybody over a cause that we know we've already won. I don't like to waste people's time. But there's an important point here that I had forgotten, which is that right now, all these lawmakers in Lansing, Democrats and Republicans, more importantly, in both chambers, are getting absolutely inundated from angry constituents demanding they do something about guns. And of course, their proposals are the usual universal background checks, they call them, which is really just code for universal gun registration. Magazine capacity limits, as though that does anything to stop an active shooter. I mean, we've had mass shootings where they do magazine changes. It takes 1 second. The real problem is the ordinary citizen does not have full capacity, and some ordinary citizens are subject to gang violence and multiple attackers.
Bad guys don't follow laws.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. And plus, also, it's a pain in the ass to reload a magazine. And restricting it to 10 rounds, it irritates everybody. I know it's not the strongest argument, but it's an argument gun owners understand. And more fundamentally, the essence of a magazine capacity limit is fundamentally you don't have the right to defend yourself. John Smith, I wasn't a bad guy. That is true. Thank you for corroborating, John. Please do not elaborate further. But more fundamentally, all of these infringements just erode the fundamental right you have to self-defense. And whether it's banning, right now, I mean, the largest caliber you can have is a 50 cal, but I remember like years ago, people were saying 50 cals are the Solitherns of the old day. They will erode and erode and erode and erode your gun rights every which way they can. And right now, look, like I said, to his great credit, Senator Shirkey has said we're not going to bring up any gun control bills in the Senate. But the fact is, all of these Republican state reps and senators are getting bombarded with demands for all of these things, what they call common sense gun restrictions, whether it's universal gun registration, whether it's red flag laws in which a court can adjudicate you unfit to own a gun without trial, just based on the testimony of some bureaucrat, magazine capacity limits. And another one that they're pushing now is also restrictions on firearms in government property, including county property, municipal property. By the way, county property, a friend of mine just pointed this out to me tonight. County property can also include fairgrounds where gun shows are held. There's huge potential for giving, and this is Senate Bill 352, which says any county-owned property they could ban guns on, including gun shows. Of course, the real intention is to ban guns at municipal hearings, maybe some school board meetings that might be held.
Ban guns, period. It's just the first step.
Yeah, that and that too. And of course, there's also companion legislation to ban guns at the Capitol. So anyway, the point of all this is, let's not shirk our responsibility to contact our lawmakers and remind them how important our gun rights really are. Even though we have assurances that none of these bills are going anywhere, the fact is lawmakers are going to be inundated from one side, and if the other side does not speak up and speak out, the impression that leaves on these lawmakers can be extremely damaging. I worked in Congress when Sandy Hook happened, and we got thousands of emails from both sides. And we got thousands of emails saying support what they called common sense gun restrictions. And they were all these same things: magazine capacity, assault weapons ban, universal background checks, gun registration, all the rest. And it was only, and by the way, keep in mind, this was when Barack Obama was president. This was when Harry Reid was the Senate Majority Leader. And the only bulwark against gun control at that moment was John Boehner and Eric Cantor in the House Majority and the Republican caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I can tell you, they were ready to compromise. They were ready to pass common sense universal background checks. The NRA was ready to compromise, just as they had when the Brady bill was passed into law with the NRA support as a common sense compromise. And it was only because of groups that went hard after these Republican lawmakers that were ready to squish, and ultimately pulled off probably one of the biggest upsets in America's political history when they knocked out Eric Cantor, the House Majority Leader, and replaced him with David Bratt, an ordinary guy. That was what killed gun restrictions after Sandy Hook. So, yeah, folks, sending in those petitions, and we're going to be launching those petitions probably tomorrow.
I'm excited about that because of today.
Yeah, so Amber and I were at a gun show in Novi today, and we got like literally well over 100 people signing petitions opposing gun control in the legislature, messages that we're going to send to the lawmakers on Monday, signing people up, signing tons of petitions for Secure My Vote, signing
Over
petitions.
200. Mm-hmm.
It was fantastic, and I just want to let you guys all know, if you're looking to expand your local organization, I hope you're looking at the calendar for gun shows in Michigan. I know there's at least one at migunshows.com. I don't think that's an exhaustive list. I know there was at least 2 gun shows this weekend, one in Novi and another in Taylor. But these are prime grounds for getting petition signatures, for growing your local organization. And we've been talking over many of these shows about how you expand and grow your local organization. And one of the best ways is when you've got these big events where there's lots of conservatives showing up, where you get these people on your list.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were handing out Amber, you're handing out flyers for you've got, let me see, hold on. Do you have let me see if I can find it here.
Can you?
I want to pull up a flyer for your
cool.
What
thanks.
is it? Huh?
Bullets and beer.
Yeah, your bullets and beer event, and let's see if I can find it here.
Yeah, so I'll plug it really fast. So January 6th, because January 6th, why not? We're having a Bullets and Beer event, which is going to be from 6 to 9 at Huron Valley Guns, and it is an hour of shooting, and then all you can eat pizza and beer afterwards with January 6th Patriot speakers at Molly Pictures and Huron Valley Guns. It's going to be a good time. But yeah, I was passing out flyers left and right for that, for Young America First Republicans, pumping up OCRP because we were there for Oakland County Republican Party. And it was a great day. It was great hanging out with Adam and just meeting conservatives. It was really great. It was fun.
January 6th at Huron Valley Guns in Milford.
New Hudson.
Well, technically New Hudson, but yeah, it's the 96 off of the Milford Road exit. Yeah, Huron Valley Guns, and it's what, 4:30? Is that when it starts?
6 to 9.
6 to 9. Sorry, 6 to 9, folks.
Yeah, it's a Thursday.
So you should definitely come to that. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure I will be there. An hour at the range, followed by an open bar and lots of camaraderie with patriots in Oakland County there. So check that out. January 6th, 6 to 9 p.m. Bullets and beer. By the way, in chat, John Smith says, in strategy, allowing them to ban all guns would destroy the Democrats. I will take issue with this tactical analysis here. I don't think losing ground leads to winning more ground later. It's the notion that if the pendulum stops at one point, it will swing back further the other way. It does not work that way. Think about what they did with the lockdowns last year. They moved the center by redefining what normal is. If they ban all guns, and by the way, how exactly do they go about banning all guns? They go about banning all guns by getting Republican buy-in. And they're going to have mass media buy-in, and suddenly banning guns is normal.
Right. PS Political said Australia, that's what they are trying to do here. And once you ban the guns, we can't fight back. And
yeah, do
we ever win after that? No.
Yeah. Banning guns did not lead to a conservative right-wing renaissance in Australia. It doesn't work that way.
Look at Venezuela.
Yeah, we don't cede ground by losing. We don't. Well, I'm sorry. We do cede ground by losing. We don't get bigger gains later on from losing fights. We have to fight them where the fight is. So, all right, folks. We've been going for almost a half hour already. It's time to get into the topic for tonight, which is the Democrats' plan for victory in 2022. And this is going. John says we're going to compare America to those nations. Yeah, because the politics works the same way. Tactics are the same. Tactics are political neutral. They're politically neutral. They're ideologically neutral, and they work the same every which way.
Just with guns, though, if you take away our guns, that we're done. I mean, that's how I feel. How do you feel, Adam? Like, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Anyway, all right, we could talk about this all night, but we have an agenda. We have an agenda. We got to get to it at some point because we're already almost a half hour in. So let's talk about the Democrats' plan to win in 2022. And we're gonna look at a few different documents here. Some of them are clearly wishful thinking, but this is what they are planning to do. And we should look at this see how we can countervail the strong points of the strategy, see how we can play into the weak points of their strategy, and wherever there's lunacy in the strategy, which there will be, make some fun of them. So, all right. So this first document, this is a short one. It's only 3 pages. It's a summary of a longer one we have here. The How 2020 Shapes 2022 plan. This is a longer document. We can't go through the whole thing because it's 59 pages, but we'll skim over it. We also have the Democrat Socialists of America National Electoral Strategy for 2021-2022. And if you don't know who the Democrat Socialists of America are, they are the largest socialist organization that expressly embraces getting involved in Democrat Party politics. A lot of socialists, a lot of communists are like, no, we have to have our own party. We're not going to get involved in the Democrats. They're scum. We're going to do our own third party thing. Democrat Socialists of America understand that we are a two-party country, and they seek to manipulate and control the Democrat Party and steer the Democrat agenda. And they have representation in Congress, including Detroit's Rashida Tlaib, including the Bronx's, I shouldn't say the Bronx's own because she's not really from there, but AOC is a DSA congresswoman. And they have had a number of long-term congressmen from Michigan, especially, including John Conyers, who's a DSA member who served in Congress for decades, and David Bonnier, which for anyone in the audience who might not know who David Bonnier was, David Bonnier was a member of Congress from 1977 to 2003. So he was in Congress for decades. He was a DSA member. He actually retired from Congress in 2003 when, because of the redistricting, interestingly, his congressional district suddenly didn't fit anymore. He resided in Mount Clemens, which was now going into Sander Levin's district. And if he was to relocate, he would have been in the 10th congressional district, which was going to be and turned out to be easily won by Candace Miller. So he was a victim of Republican gerrymandering. But what David Bonnier went on to do was to run for governor in 2002. And he was one of the 3 Democrat candidates for governor. He came in a distant second to Jennifer Granholm, but to his credit, ahead of Jim Blanchard, the former Democrat governor. But anyway, point being, David Bonnier was for decades a powerhouse in Michigan politics, and he was a member of the Democrat Socialists of America. And at the time, back in those days before Rashida Tlaib and AOC, these were like the most prominent Democrat socialists in America, these guys. So we should pay attention to this document and what the DSA has in store for Michigan coming up next year. So anyway, those are the 3 big documents we're going to go through. There's also this other funny one from DSA called Organizing for Justice. If we have time, we'll go through it. But this one, I did look at this. So I did look this over, and it's pretty lame, I guess we'll just say. I mean, generic, boring, weird. And it's going to probably be duplicative of the other documents we're going through. But anyway, let's start with, and of course, Amber, I know because you're the Oakland County Executive Director, these are things you're going to be seeing
I know.
in the Democrat candidates and how they operate and what they're looking to do. But so you guys watching who are involved in partisan politics, look for these strategies because you'll see them if you know what you're looking for. So, all right, let's go through it. How 2020 Shapes 2022. Data to Win, retrospective. Again, this is the summary of the bigger document here. So, 2 interested parties from Way to Win, that's their consulting firm. 2020 post-election analysis and implications. Recently released data from the 2020 census found that the United States is getting more diverse. That the population of white Americans fell from 63.7% in 2010 to 57.8%, and that communities of color are migrating in larger numbers to states in the South and the West, not Michigan. This growth will affect the future of the American electorate in 2022 and 24. And the 2020 election results showed us that voter patterns have already begun to shift. Way to Win's 2020 retrospective analysis is a first of its kind deep dive into voter data across 11 key states, focused on emerging political battlegrounds across the South and Southwest, where demographics are rapidly changing. These 11 states, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Virginia, made up Way to Win's 2020 plan to win, i.e., they did target Michigan in 2020, and they moved $110 million to support year-round organizing, voter outreach, storytelling, and policy advocacy, mostly led by women and people of color. Okay, so they're laying a foundation here that most of this is going to apply to southwestern states where there's demographic shifts, but nonetheless, the tactics they're going to be using are universal. So they say this data presented by Way to Win in partnership with 31 grassroots organizing groups across the country studies voting and turnout patterns within these states with a breakdown of demographics. It provides insight into virtually every key voter block across the country, including turnout and registration patterns among Black, AAPI, that's Asian and American, Asian American Pacific Islander. Yeah. Which I mean, isn't that Asian too? But whatever. Latino and white voters, the voting blocks that have the ability to build power and win elections for years to come. Interesting that they say these are the voting blocks that have the ability to build power and win elections. Black, white, Latino. Who else is there? Whatever. When reviewing this data, it is critical to understand that often we look at national data that skews our understanding of the multiracial coalition and simplifies voters' behavior in the states we need to win in order to maintain power in the White House, Senate, and the state level. As Democrats face historic trends and many predictions about pending electoral losses in 2022, where is that coming from? Straight from the White House, folks. It is imperative we follow the data to understand how we can build on the real successes of 2020 to create a durable winning coalition in the upcoming midterms and in future elections. So what they're saying is we got we won in 2020, but we're looking like we're going to get clobbered in 2022. How do we stop that from happening? Which is what we want to start that happening as soon as we possibly can.
I feel like we've started. We're started.
Well, yes.
In Oakland County.
No. But let's look at what they're going to emphasize. So, key findings and implications. To win in 2022, Democrats must cultivate and turn out what they call high potential voters, which means low turnout voters. That means potheads. High potential voters they turned out in 2018 by putting marijuana on the ballot.
Yes.
Now think about the reverse of this. To win in 2022, Republicans must turn down low propensity voters, right?
Well, I feel like Democrats are already turning down their own voters with everything they're doing, the economy, the gas prices. Like they're already their own worst enemy. But go on.
Sure, but let's help that along. I mean, how do we depress turnout among the lowest interest Democrat voters? I mean, it's right there in front of you. You point out both parties are bad. That line often works with Democrats or with low interest Democrats.
Right. Yeah,
the Democrat establishment, they're corrupt too. They're the ones screwing up our schools. They're the ones destroying our freedom. They're the ones, there's some, that's
my,
yeah. Sorry, folks.
Lisa's not a screaming kid.
No, so there are ways to depress turnout, and that does go a long way, because what the Democrats are going to essentially say here, and this is what they are, and in fact, this is what they're saying right in this first paragraph, is we need to invite high potential, low interest voters to become more habitual voters who consistently break for Democrats. And here's a money quote right here. Democrats cannot afford a scarcity mindset where we only talk to high frequency persuadable voters in 2022. I mean, that is telling you their strategy is turn out the least likely voters.
In all fairness, though, and me being me, and me, I feel like we should target those people and make them more leaning for Republican as an outreach person. you know me, and I want to go into like Pontiac, and I feel like I could do that, but that's just me. That's my little pie in the sky idea.
I think there are some people you can get there.
Thank you.
There are also people, and I know a few of them, who won't vote Republican, but might just be persuaded to stay home if they are sick enough with the Democrats.
We can work both angles.
To send them a message, you don't deserve our vote either. And sometimes sometimes that is a winning play. Because people like you and me and the people who are watching the show, I'm sure, we all believe in our values. We all believe in fighting for them. But the people that they're talking about here are the people that don't normally care enough to vote at all.
I know.
And the easiest way to get them to, what's easier? Getting two of them to stay home or getting one of them to vote Republican?
But if you get them to vote one time, they could be Republican voters for the rest of their lives. Like that's my opinion. If we convert them.
That's a good point. You got me there. You got me there. Question is though, really will they? Really will they?
I have faith in people. I know that we're different in that respect.
All right. Anyway, we're going to be here all night if we don't keep going. So here's what they continue on saying. History teaches us this is a losing midterm strategy, as higher turnout always correlates with Democrat wins in key states. They're shouting at you. Depress turnout. Depress our turnout. Depress our turnout. Please, show us how Gretchen Whitmer hates marijuana. Show us how Gretchen Whitmer is hurting education, is hurting Black people. Which she's doing all these things.
Absolutely, you're right.
Anyway, all right, let's keep going. Despite conventional wisdom that credits Trump's popularity and gains with new GOP voters, 2020 surge voters were majority Democrats.
We can argue.
Let's put it aside because we're back on YouTube. Let's just assume these results are fine. 8.6 million people voted for the first time ever in 11 key battleground states alone. 4.7 million were modeled as Democrats. These model Democrats accounted for 55.5% of first-time voter electorate. That's not great numbers for the Democrats, by the way.
Those are real numbers.
Huh?
Those are real numbers.
We're on YouTube. These are totally true numbers. But even taking them as fact, 55% is not that big of a majority if we're looking at the first-time voting block.
Mm-hmm.
That means there's 44.5% that were first-time Republican voters.
They didn't do a good job cheating.
And don't listen to our YouTube. We totally believe the election was totally cool. By the way, I forgot. I was going to retell my story about the deranged maniac who was a YouTube censor that I actually met when I was in San Francisco a couple of years ago. I might retell that story later on if we have time for it. Because every time we get banned from YouTube, I think I have to retell the story. Anyway, but the point being, they modeled only 56% of these people as Democrats. And that still means that these are what they are calling low propensity voters, people who turned out because they've decided they hate Trump, who is not on the ballot next year.
Right.
But
not
how many of these 45 or 44.5% first-time voters, Republicans, who are still suffering under Whitmer?
Okay.
Who are still facing school closures,
masks,
who are still facing having every aspect of their lives intruded upon by government garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they go on. Traditional strategists focus on high-frequency voters, but our analysis shows that those voters are polarized and entrenched. Only about 5.5 million voters are modeled as swing voters. Strangely similar mathematical figure there, 55.5%, 5.5 million voters across key battleground states. However, high potential voters are those who only voted in one or two of the last three elections, accounted for 24.8 million voters across those very same states. This is dumb on their part. This is wishful thinking on their part, and this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. First of all, this number doesn't sound right to me at all. traditionally 80% of voters are the people that never change party. They vote for the same party regardless of the issues or the candidate. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter what the issues are. They're either on Team D or Team R. 80%, 20% in the swing. I mean, how else do they? I mean, how does this difference even make sense? They're saying there's only 5.5 million regular Democrat voters in how many swing states? 11. But 24. I mean, this is nonsense. They're deluding themselves here.
Well,
but they're looking to go after two things, and these are and what they're doing, I think, because they do know better, is that these 5.5 million voters, which is actually probably 50 million voters, are their base. They're gonna. I mean, they're my parents. They're gonna vote for the Democrats no matter who they are, what the issues are, what the facts are. These are the targets. These are the targets Republicans need to target too. There's only two major factors in any major election: turnout and swing votes. Turning out your base, maybe depressing turnout on the opponent's base, and persuading the people who are undecided to vote your way. All right, anyway, moving on. Democrats must contend with a double threat in these 11 key battleground states. And this is a clue here. These are the two things the Democrats are most afraid of: erosion of Democrat support and new voter enthusiasm for the GOP among voters of color and younger voters. These are the two things the Democrats are telling you they are afraid of. At the same time, Democrats gained with some white voters in 2020, particularly non-evangelical Christian, wealthy suburban women.
Yep. Yeah, trust me.
Exactly what it is.
Those crazy. Yeah.
That's where you come in, Amber.
I'm trying.
You're ground zero of those people. And seriously, folks, I mean, we're joking, but we're dead serious. People vote according to social group. And the reason why there was a huge drop off in Republican votes in Oakland County, especially among wealthy white suburban women, is because that was where the social demographics were shifting. That was where they were like, oh, Trump is repulsive to the things that my social group values, and they all, as a body, turned away. Like I was talking to a staffer for I'll just say a prominent Republican in Oakland County, and she said, I can't believe how many doors I knock on where the people say, I'm not going to vote for Republican ever again because of Trump. I mean, that was their attitude.
So ignorant.
Right, I mean, well, yeah, right or wrong, that was what they were saying. And you got to meet them at. I mean, you got to change their mind on their terms, and that's where they were coming from.
See, but going back to like different groups, is I would rather reach out to the people of Pontiac that I feel like I can make more headway with than the demographics of rich suburban white women. Like, I mean, that's just me though.
Well, I mean, first of all, it really depends on the campaigns and the races, and and you're a county, you're a county official, so you've got a bunch of different races to think about.
Yeah.
From the perspective of the top of the ticket, get every vote wherever you can find them. If there are more swing votes in play that you can draw from Pontiac or Southfield or wherever, fine.
I believe I can. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I know you believe in me too by that statement.
Yes. I don't necessarily believe you're going to get a Republican state rep out of well, try everywhere.
This is
the thing the Democrats do, people. They don't not try anywhere.
Right, we just give up on cities. That's the thing that makes me angry. And I know we're going on a weird tangent and you hate doing that. But
no, this is important though. You're right. Go ahead.
Yes, people give up on cities. We're like, oh, we're not going to touch that. They don't touch it for 60 years. And I'm talking to and I don't know if I'm going to plug him right now, but Prince, he's running for a county commission seat in Oakland County, against Angela Powell in Pontiac. And I'm really optimistic. What if we go after that? What if we change it? We were talking about this today, and I want it. Well, let's do it.
I mean, I think there's a big potential for making major gains county-wide, statewide, where you can swing a lot of voters within that district, and that's important. That's something that candidates for statewide office, governor, attorney general, SOS, and all the rest should be focusing on. From the perspective of the district, however, I'll tell you, there's only so many percentage points you can swing. That can be a bigger swing than you might be able to get from, say, a Republican district where that support is maxed out. Like, for example, conversely, Representative John Riley was in a seat that went between 70% and 65% Republican in that legislative district. So he had nowhere to go but down.
Yeah.
The Democrat doesn't care. The Democrat, Jody LaMacchia, who is, I think, now the Oakland County Democrat chairwoman, she didn't care that it was a seat that was hopelessly unwinnable. She ran anyway. Because the Democrat, that's their attitude. We're going to go everywhere we can and bring the fight to them and get the most votes we possibly can anywhere and fight them on all fronts. Republicans don't think that way. And
no, we give up on cities. We don't go into Southfield. We don't go into Pontiac. We have so many cities we don't go into in Oakland County. That's why we lost Oakland County. It's because we lose little bits and pieces at a time until we're like, well, what happened? Oh, what happened?
Yeah.
That's what happened. You stop going into cities and caring.
Yeah, you write off losses that you shouldn't. And Democrats don't do this anywhere.
No.
They fight everywhere.
Yes.
Anyway, getting back to Democrats being stupid.
That was really good.
So, all right. So Democrats must contend with this double threat: erosion of Democrat support and new voter enthusiasm for the GOP. And by the way, this I think underscores a big thing: the new voter enthusiasm for the GOP. Like when I was in college, I hate to say 20 years ago, there was no enthusiasm for the GOP. George W. Bush was the president. He was bombing the Middle East. There was no, and the Republicans were in charge by and large. I think they had the House and Senate at the time. So all people would do was attack the people in power, and that's the way that goes. The Democrats are the people in power now. They're the punching bag, and a lot of voters are looking. The new voters, people who are new to politics, who are looking at the landscape, and they don't remember the neocon era.
Right.
But they understand the Democrat fascist era that we're in right now, where they're not even just demanding that they have control over the power structure. They're demanding they have control over your mind and your body and your speech and your statements. And if you say the wrong thing, they're going to come after you.
They're going to ban you. They're not going to let you go into stadiums if they don't have, the vaccine in you.
Yep.
We're there.
And people are afraid to speak up, but they will at the ballot box if they can be motivated. And we've seen, we saw people today at the gun show who are like, oh, what's the point? Oh, it's another petition and blah, blah, blah. That's the demoralization that we have to actively fight against.
And those were Republicans, supposedly, defeated.
I'm sure they are. And I would say, though, about them, part of that defeat comes from experience. It comes from putting their trust into Republicans in the past and maybe someone else in the past, politicians, and putting their trust into somebody and then the trust being broken. And they're like, you know what? Politics is dirty. Politics is cruel. Politics is stupid. Doesn't make sense. Why waste my time? And the only answer is because what choice do you have?
Exactly.
The choices, your choices are fighting and losing.
I love the people that are like, oh, I'm never going to vote again. Well, then you just lose. If you don't play the game, you just lose.
We will put you in a box. I mean that literally. As a political consultant, we survey all the voters in the district, and the ones that haven't voted in the last two elections, we will never contact. We will never reach out to. We don't care because you don't care.
Okay.
We will only target the people whose opinions we do care about. And if you want to see proof of this, become a Republican precinct delegate.
Yes, good plug.
Discover just how much more politicians care about how you think when you're a precinct delegate. All of a sudden, You're going to get a lot more fundraising letters, a lot more junk mail, a lot more survey calls, and you might be annoyed by them. But it tells you something. All of a sudden, your opinion matters because you're participating, and your vote might actually be in play.
Your vote always matters. I do want to say that. Your vote always matters.
Right. Well, yes.
But yeah.
It certainly does. But the point being,
the people that don't think that.
The people who drop out because they have a real understandable frustration with how things are. But some of the people we were talking to today, someone says, oh, the Republican Party is totally corrupt. The Republican Party doesn't do anything. They're the Democrats' doormat. And my answer to them was, that's why I'm a Republican. Mm-hmm. Because if we're not there, that's who controls the GOP. That's why you have to be involved. And by the way, part of that attitude comes from people who are into the third parties. The Libertarians, the Constitution Party people, and on the left, the Green Party, I'm sure, think the same way.
Right. The Democrat Socialists.
And you hear people, it's actually a popular political argument all the time, is we should be more like Europe, where they have 3, 5, 7 different parties. And I don't buy that at all. I think the two-party system in America is actually really convenient. It's simple. It's A or B. And what we've seen happen in the last 50 years of politics is that the parties have become ideological opposites in a way they didn't start out as. Like back in the 1950s, 1960s, and 70s, political parties were like regional. Like you had people in Wisconsin who were Democrats, and you had people in North Carolina who were Republicans, and that was like the party identity came with geography and tradition more than it came with ideology. And what's happened over the course of the last few decades is that now the Republicans have evolved into being essentially the party of liberty, less government, and there's been issues that we've litigated within the GOP. I mean, I was an old Ron Paul supporter, and back in the day, the neocons were in charge, and the big thing was we support Middle East foreign wars. And we litigated that and fought it out and ultimately won when Donald Trump became president after campaigning literally against George W. Bush's foreign policy. Same thing with immigration policy. And it's like, if you go out and you try to get involved in the third party over, I mean, first of all, probably only 1 or 2 issues that are personal to you. Imagine if you left the GOP because the party bosses were in favor of immigration. So what do you do? From the anti-immigration party, some kind of single issue third party, it's going to go nowhere, do nothing. And in the end, all you do is not have a vote in the two-party contest. So I think the two-party binary is workable. I think it's useful. I think it's simple. I think it's great. Because ultimately what we've done, I mean, look what we've done over the last few years. The Democrat Party used to be the party of the ACLU and free speech and civil liberties. They've thrown that in the garbage and we've picked it up. And now it's our platform. Now we're the people that care about civil liberties and peace and freedom and justice.
Working class. We're the working class party.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah. Let the Democrats' downward spiral into moral decay continue to its conclusion. So, yeah. Anyway, all right. We're going to be here all night if we don't get to this document. We've been going for almost an hour. If we can't get through all of these, folks, I will just throw all these documents onto our website so you can look through them all. But we'll probably skip this second one because this is basically the long version of what we've been reading up to this point. It's sponsored by Michigan United, a group I've never heard of. There's another left-wing group on here somewhere.
But can we talk about how Democrat Socialist is an oxymoron? Like, you haven't even touched on that.
Yeah. Well, we haven't talked about the DSA yet. This is still this document is still from this progressive plan group. There's still the DSA. Yeah, we will get to them. We will get to them.
We can do a part 2.
Yeah, well, we might have to. But all right, let's try to plow through this. Let's see how far we get. If we have to, we'll do another video.
Sounds good.
All right. Anyway, so Democrats admit their worst threat is erosion of their support and new voter enthusiasm for the GOP among voters of color, which is, in my humble opinion, not a way to characterize people, but that's how they choose to do it, and younger voters. At the same time, Democrats gained with some white voters, particularly, okay, we read all this. All right, given losses among certain voters of color, this is hilarious, certain voters of color. Gee, who might those certain voters be? Is that your term for Latinx? Is that what we're talking about here? Certain voters of color? And gains among certain white voters. We know who that means. We talked about that a moment ago. Democrats should take the stance of actively persuading all voters. Well, I mean, that's funny. I mean, and that's what every party should aspire to do anyway. But what they're essentially admitting is we don't have the segmented strategy that we used to have. It used to be we tell the black people how we're the black party, we tell the Hispanics how we're the Hispanic party, we tell the unions how we're the union party, we tell the women how we're the women's party. Now it's we should actively persuade all. I mean, this is like a non-statement. Yeah. Now, who should take the stance of actively persuading all voters? Anybody involved in politics at all, ever, for any reason. All right. Anyway, so they say of those who voted in 2020 in the 11 states that we studied, 6.3% are modeled to lean GOP. But among first-time voters in 2020, 19.8% are modeled to lean GOP. That's not good for them. AAPI voters are some of the fastest growing communities in the U.S., not in Michigan, however, and when registered are highly likely to turn out to vote. However, our analysis showed that in all 11 battleground states we studied, Democrats may have lost some support from AAPI voters in comparison to 2016 results and modeling. In Georgia, for example, of those who voted, 10% fewer are modeled to have supported Democrats in 2020 compared to 2016. That loss ultimately pushed AAPI support. And again, AAPI stands for Asian and Pacific Islanders. To fall from the modeled majority Democrat support to majority Republican with this demographic. If only we had more AAPIs in Michigan.
I feel like they're just admitting their own voter fraud.
We have more Chinese people in Ann Arbor, but they don't count. It's. Hey, shut up! We're on YouTube.
Isn't that funny though? Like. They're just admitting their own.
Yeah, it's where we were bleeding support from Hispanics, we're bleeding support from Asians, but
we won.
Well,
you're gonna get kicked off of YouTube.
I mean, what they're telling us is that you people, you suburban white women, you're the reason why Joe Biden's president. So
that's exactly what they're saying, and I am not a suburban white woman.
Oh yeah. Tell me which of those three categories you're not eligible. No, but seriously. This is what they're saying is their biggest weak. This is what they're saying their strength is we've brought a lot of suburban white women into the Democrat Party.
Which is crazy. That's why I want to go to Pontiac and not Bloomfield Hills. I shouldn't say that as OCRP director. Sorry.
Hold the line.
Hold the
line, Amber. Get these suburban white women back.
Bye-bye.
That is your job. These are the people in play. These are the people in. Well, I mean, they're claiming they're not. But everybody else is trending towards us, right?
Right, but I feel like we should keep them trending towards us and
get rid of
the suburban white woman.
Well, what's easier, creating inertia or stopping inertia? I say stopping inertia.
Oh, that was a good one. I can't fight back. That was a good one.
All right. Anyway, all right. Even in Florida, of Latinos who voted, and Mexicans, Cubans, they're all the same. 1.9% more are modeled to have supported Democrats in 2020 compared to 2016.
I can't believe you said that.
What?
Whatever you just said. It was funny that Shane wasn't on the call with that one.
Well, no, but that's actually an important distinction, especially in Florida, because Cubans and Mexicans have very different political ideologies.
They do.
Hugely. That's why Marco Rubio is a U.S. senator, unfortunately. All right. Anyway, so in Texas, 67.9% of 2020 Latino voters are mild to support Democrats, despite losing some ground to the GOP when compared to those who voted in 2016. All right. Well, that's Texas, so whatever. All right. Anyway, we're getting near the end of the document. We can probably even skip the methodology because who cares? They're just saying we did a study, and I'm sure the study was good. Blah blah blah. All right. So we're almost done. Key takeaway number 3, while white voters made a significant contribution to Democrat margins in 2020, no states were won with white votes alone. Well, that is a non-statement. I mean,
yeah.
Are you sure? Are you sure about Maine? Are you sure about North Dakota? Are you sure about Montana, Nebraska? Oh, whatever. All right.
Wyoming.
All right. White voters and voters of color are crucial to them. I mean, it's such a non-statement. White voters and voters of color, which is all of them, right? Or, voters of color and voters of no color are crucial to Democrat success in virtually equal weight. That is not the case for the GOP, which is more of a monolith. Democrats need to align on...
We're pigmentless. We're pigmentless.
Yeah. We're the voters of no color. Democrats need to align on messages that unify the whole multiracial, multi-generational coalition around a shared vision rather than silo voters. But I mean, the amazing thing in all of this is, within this statement, is they're reversing their entire strategy that they've had for decades. Because that's exactly what they've done. They have entirely siloed voters by race, ethnicity, class, gender, and age. That was exactly what their strategy always was. Now they're saying we're not going to do that anymore. How to play against that? I don't know. I mean, I think we should do what we've always done in the first place, which is not to silo voters at all. They've never done. So anyway, in key battleground states, okay, this is all gobbledygook. Democrats have a fight in their hands. Oh, here we go. Democrats have a fight on their hands among young people. We found that among voters ages 18 to 29 in the 11 battleground states, only 52.3% are modeled to support Democrats versus 42.7% for Republicans. That's below average for Democrats. Because people become Republicans as they get older, when they start paying taxes and having kids and having to take care of their families. 52% among Democrats, among young people, is abysmal for them. I mean, that's a demographic to go after. Like you might do with a group like, I don't know, you might call it like Young America First Republicans or something.
Crazy,
that might be a smart strategy. Young people need persuasion too, and cannot be taken for granted as voters who will just show up for Democrats automatically. Yeah, well, they sure won't if they go to a beer and bullets event and realize how much more fun we are.
We right?
I mean,
we give you a gender, people. We give you a gender.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have time to go through the whole thing, but just look at the Democrat Socialist Organization.
Wait, look at that picture, though. Look at that picture up there. I wanted to point out that picture. Look at that just picture of like. Yeah, that's not a good look for your people.
Don't these don't look like people you want to party with?
No, they look upset and sad and depressed. I was like, those are unmasculine, anything people. You're just blah.
Yeah.
The white suburban white woman.
They're vanilla.
Vanilla.
They're the very color.
There's no diversity in that group.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the Democrats. That's the Democrats' modus operandi. Make colored people vanilla again.
That's a good one. We should spin that. I like it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna probably regret that one. We'll see. Anyway, they have this exciting chat. I'll put this all on the website. I'll put links in the description.
Okay, I have to get off camera for 1 minute.
You go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Anyway, I'm just gonna say. I mean, this is the chapter in the Democrat Socialists of America Organizing Manual, and this is their chapter for how to organize a DSA local. And boy, does this sound mind-blowingly boring. here's what they do. They say, start the conversation. Sound confident. Be reasonable and considerate. Talk about when you realized you were a democratic socialist. And then get them talking. Practice active listening. What kinds of issues are they interested in? What makes them question the dominant ideology? Which presumably in this context does not mean the truth, which is the left-wing ideology. When did they... Actually, maybe the thing to think about is how to reverse this. Get people talking who are questioning their liberal values. What makes them question the dominant liberal ideology, the woke ideology? When did they realize they want to do something to change things? Get them talking about themselves. And then educate and agitate. Provide information about the Democrat Socialists and our goals and what you would like to do that would address some of the issues that they mentioned as motivating them. Talk about why it's important for them to get involved. I'm trying to think about these in two different ways. One is how this actually would even work for Democrats in the first place, but this is their manual. This is what they were doing. And then trying to think, is this something that can work for us? And I can't
believe they put agitate in there. Did you already say that? Like, that's ridiculous. Sorry.
Oh, well, no, but that's if you read Rules for Radicals, that is the remo. That's exactly what they try to do. They're like, what we want to do is try to get people who are frustrated to get mad enough to do something or motivate them to do something. And, I think they express it poorly. And I know they do because they're so bad at getting ordinary people to actually come to the Democrat Socialists of America meetings. They're not nice people. But the tactic is well founded. Like, we saw people today who are frustrated, but also don't want to get involved, don't want to get engaged, despite the severity of the circumstances, because they're like, doesn't sound like my kind of party. And that's the kind of thing that you want to try to overcome. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna get back. I drifted over this document because we got off on a tangent talking about how weird
the numbers are crazy.
Engagement actually looks, but that's like the kind of thing to capitalize on right now. Is that Democrats are, as a body, right now, miserable, repressed, self-repressed freaks, and no one wants to be their friends. And
yes, that's exactly it.
The GOP motto for 2022 should be, "Come in, the water's fine." All right. Anyway, all right. Where were we? No states are won with whites alone, other than North Dakota and
Wyoming and Montana.
So anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, okay. So in the post-Trump era, new voters who participated in 2018 and 2020 are again increasingly multiracial.
See, again, I can't say it, but you know what I'm thinking.
The audience doesn't, so you have to tell them.
That again refutes their whole statement and how they won 2020 election. And,
Okay, all right. Well, point being, it was close enough that it shouldn't have been. Trump should have won with 80% of the popular vote in all 50 states. And frankly,
he did.
To some degree. Yeah, he won California, sure. To some degree.
California doesn't count.
To some degree, the GOP is selling. To some degree, his own. And we'll not go further into this. Point being, in the post-Trump era, as they call it, as they desperately hope it is,
right.
In Georgia, the majority of new voters are people of color. And let's just ignore that because that's Georgia. It's not the same as Michigan, not the same as any other state. But their point, I think, is that they had their most successful get out the vote and also new voter registration efforts in Georgia.
Money. A lot of money.
But the point is, that's what they were targeting. Multiracial, non-white voters. And yet, they keep saying over and over again, strangely, a lot of these multiracial voters aren't as Democrat as they thought they were. Not as many of these young voters are as Democrat as they thought they were. Anyway, so they say, in addition to voter file analysis, we work with partners like Avalanche on qualitative research, as well as reviewed programmatic impact from 31 partner groups. That's probably these guys. Lost my place. Third partner group focused on these 11 states that illuminated insights, including in 2020, Biden voters largely based their vote on character, and within that, largely voted against Trump, while Republican voters were more actively engaged in the Republican Party's agenda. Yeah, I mean, there's two failings here. One was Trump was, even for him, way too punchy. I mean, he could have angled more presidential, but also Republicans did not do enough to go after Biden's character. And also, to be fair, the mass media stole the election by concealing Biden's character on Hunter Biden's laptop and the Ukraine deals and everything else that Joe and Hunter Biden did.
We can go on and on and on about people that really are. Dementia.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm again, I don't like to go back to autobiography, but because it informs my experience, when I was arguing with my dad about this, like in September or August or whenever I saw him in the summertime or the fall, he said, I really believe Joe Biden's a good man. And I was like, that's because you haven't heard anything about him. I mean, that's the perception voters had erroneously. And those are the things that need to be. And this is something that I think the party is also, the party and even the conservative media is not good enough at, is they go really well on the facts, not so much on the character of the Democrats. And obviously I'm generalizing, there's huge exceptions to that. But the essence that Joe Biden could be considered, a doddering guy, and he's got some scandals on some pay-to-play schemes and things like that. But I don't remember any Republicans really making the argument that Joe Biden was a profoundly evil person. That Kamala Harris, yeah, she, I'm not going to, trying to think of a way not to be rude to talk about her relationship with Willie Brown. Kamala has done some things in her past, but no one ever made the argument Kamala Harris is a profoundly evil person. In the way the Democrats would make the argument Donald Trump was a profoundly evil person, according to them.
Right.
I mean, the Democrats are better at setting the parameters of what is considered morally acceptable political discourse.
Mm-hmm.
Like Democrats, without hesitation, you've got, like Mallory McMorrow, without hesitation, leveling sexual harassment, assault charges against,
Sorry, Anna, your comment was amazing. I just read Anna's comment. That was awesome. You're great. I like it.
Nice. Hold on, that reminds me, I should check Rumble, because I'm sorry, guys. If you're watching us on Rumble does not feed into StreamYard, unfortunately, as of yet. So if I don't actually have our video open, I miss your comments. And in fact, I have a feeling I just had to reopen the window because of that stupid glitch we had earlier, that I probably didn't see any Rumble chats if they were there before I closed the window until just this minute. Anyway, if you guys want to participate, we're live on Facebook. Go to our Facebook page or go to our YouTube page.
My good friend Jennifer Kozik did ask a really good question. She goes, and this was like way back when you talked about Conyers and that dude. Yeah. She goes, how did the Republicans not expose the socialists back then before it got out of control?
Well, I mean, there's a few things to that. I think the most important point to that is a lot of times, like, just calling somebody a socialist isn't enough, and a lot of voters, especially younger voters, don't really understand what that really means.
Yeah.
And what voters need is the specific facts that show the moral bankruptcy of the opponent, and that's the thing to slam on hard. That's what resonates. If you call somebody a name, I mean, you can say, Debbie Dingle is a commie punk. Debbie Dingle is a corporate whore. Debbie Dingle is this and this and this. But okay, well, what exactly did she do? You come across as just like you're just name calling, and there isn't there isn't enough specificity. And part of the problem is, especially like not so much with Trump, but with like lower level elections, when you're dealing with like state house, state senate, even Congress, not so much U.S. Senate, but with state house or U.S. House races, the public doesn't get a whole lot of news input or any input for that matter on a lot of these races. And you don't have time to lay the foundation over and over and over and over again, saying, okay, here's this fact, here's this fact, here's this fact. And you got to repeat those facts at least 4 times before they imprint. And only even if you can get to that point, can you then start to lay the narrative out.
In all fairness, though, those two men ran a lot and a lot and a lot. So it could have been done. I'm just saying.
Well, the point being, the way to win the races is not to characterize the ideology of the opponent and explain to the voters how the ideology is bad and so is a socialist. But you look at the material things. Like, for example, if I was running for Congress as a Republican in the 11th Congressional District, you know what I'd do?
What?
I would spend all of my money absolutely saturating the Detroit news media market with the Detroit media market, period, and TV and internet, with a clip of Haley Stevens breaking down and crying on the floor of Congress.
With the pink gloves.
I can't believe it is democracy that we had. This is so horrible. You play that over and over again until people have seen it 100 times and they can't stand hearing her ever again.
Well, I can't stand
and
hearing
you have
her
a
voice,
bold thing
period.
across the screen. This is your congresswoman. She's an embarrassment. I mean, if Tom Leonard had done that to Dana Nessel with that clip, who do you trust most to not show their penis in a public setting? Is it the candidate doesn't have a penis? Yeah, I'd say so. If Tom Leonard had played that clip 1,000 times to every Detroit area voter, nobody in Detroit would have voted for Dana Nessel, and he would have won that election. Hope he learns better next time if he's the nominee. Or if not, I hope whoever the nominee is takes on that exact same tactic, because that's the reality, folks. Voters are, first of all, generally all people are more emotionally based than intellectually based. And secondly, as a campaign, you don't have the resources to bring a fact or opinion message over and over again enough time to imprint. It's got to be one thing that wins, the one political thing, the one personal thing. And that's all you got. And you got to slam on that over and over and over again. And
Dana Nessel's given us a lot of fuel over the past couple of years. So.
Yeah, but she gave him a lot of fuel before she was elected.
You know what? I didn't even know that clip, honestly. I mean, I was a Tom Leonard fan.
Exactly.
I didn't know that clip.
Exactly. You didn't know that clip. Republican operatives all did, but that's not the general public.
I was in a different place a couple of years ago than I am now.
Well, but most voters aren't. Most voters still don't know who Dana Nessel is.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you want to make the argument Dana Nessel's a sociopath, I mean, you can point to all kinds of different things, but you only get one shot. You know, stick to the simple stuff. And that still to this day is probably the best thing, because it's the most facially morally repugnant thing she's ever said.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you want to go after her for, you know, like persecuting, you know, hapless gym owners or what have you, and you're like, well, I don't know about that. Blah, blah, blah. You know, you play the one clip of them doing something objectively awful and saturate them with it to the point where they're like, I can't stand this person anymore. I mean, that's how you win. Anyway, getting back to how the Democrats think they're going to win.
Democrats socialists.
Folks, we're at almost an hour and a half. I don't know how much longer we want to go tonight. I'm happy to go further, although at some point I'm going to have to take a potty break. But anyway, where were we? Biden voters are more likely to say their vote in 2022 can make a difference, with Latino and Black voters saying their vote can make a big. Wait, what are we talking about here? I'm sorry. I'm reading this sentence and it makes no sense. Okay, we're talking about last sentence. Biden voters voted on character. That's where we got off on that tangent. Biden voters are more likely, I guess, than Trump voters to say that their vote can make a difference. Okay, this is whatever. This is gibberish.
That's bad. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the ground game in states like Georgia and Arizona was vital. Well, okay. A passing point, but an important point in Michigan and everywhere. Ground game makes all the difference.
Door knocking. Let's plug it.
Door knocking. Go to rescuemichigan.com. Get your voter files, folks. Knock on some doors. The ground game makes all the difference. When matched to voter file data, the calls, canvassing, and other forms of local-to-local voter outreach done by groups like Lucha, don't know who that is. I'm guessing it's a play on luchador, and it's a Latino something, and New Georgia Project outpaced the margin of victory in the state. So there you go. I mean, and we can go back to the 1860s if you want, to the Abe Lincoln four-step. Yes, grassroots is the most important thing in campaigns. That's why we've been obsessively telling you guys, get your voter files and knock on doors, because that's what makes the biggest difference. This data cements how imperative it will be to center high potential, low outcome voters in 2022. So, and there's another point here. I said earlier, there's two big swing factors. One is the swing voters themselves. The other is turnout. Turnout among Democrats, turnout among Republicans. I think as our country is getting more and more factionalized, that middle swing voter margin is getting smaller and smaller. The bigger difference is going to be turnout. Turnout among Republicans, turnout among Democrats. And that's not to downplay or diminish the fact that you can certainly get some people to switch parties over time, but it typically takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight.
I'll show you.
I hope you will. Can't wait to see.
Thank you.
Remind me to tell you something later.
Okay.
A certain political axiom.
Sounds good.
All right. Anyway, methodology, blah, 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 blah. All right. We're done with this document, folks. We are at 80 minutes in. So for you folks in the chat, if you have questions, please ask them now. I don't know. I don't think we can possibly cover this 59-page document, although it's basically just a longer version of what we just read over.
Well, then let's talk about Democrat Socialists. Like, let's talk about the whole basis of it, and then wrap it up for this.
I will post a link to this document in the description so you guys can all read it, and I'll post it also on rescuemichigan.com. Let's look at, for shits and giggles, the Democrat Socialists of America 2021 to 22 National Electoral Strategy. Authors, all anonymous, which is funny, pathetic, embarrassing, but that's them. Part 1, why socialists do elections. Democratic Socialists of America is committed to a world free of all and blah, 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 blah. All right. There's only one point here that I think is actually important to make. Why
socialists do elections? Because, I mean, isn't that funny? That just tells you that you don't ever win in a socialist country.
No. What they're talking about here, they're distinguishing themselves from all these other socialist groups that don't get involved in Democrat politics and are like the Revolutionary Communist Party, the Socialist Workers Party, right. And of course people that aren't an Antifa, that are not politically affiliated. They're saying we're commies, but we are viewing the Democrat Party as our vehicle. I would make this point. You could learn a lot from this statement by replacing it with why libertarians do elections and why libertarians should get involved in the Republican Party and why pro-lifers should get involved in the Republican Party and why the U.S. Taxpayers Party people should get involved in the Republican Party. Because what they're essentially, their argument is, and it's a fair argument, electoral campaigns are a crucial vehicle for reaching people and building the power and the militancy part of the working class. This is their communist outlook, but in general, they're right. Elections are one of the primary avenues through which ordinary working people experience politics. We run class struggle electoral campaigns that appeal to the interests of the vast majority of Americans, foregrounding issues like housing, healthcare, education, racial justice, and environmental justice. Well, sub that out. We run class struggle electoral campaigns that appeal to the interests of the vast majority of elections, foregrounding issues like ordinary Americans being sent off to die in pointless wars, ordinary Americans being subjected to government surveillance, ordinary Americans having their kids brainwashed by liberal elites in their schools and also being taxed for it, even if they take their kids out of public education. And I'm going to go. I mean, this is where the working class rhetoric of the populist Trump movement goes in and says, here's why we engage in Republican politics, because the Republican Party has for many years engaged in neoconservatism, pointless foreign wars, supporting illegal immigration and legal immigration because they don't care about the American working class. They care about the corporate capitalist class. And let the Democrats own that, because that's where the corporate capitalist elites really actually are nowadays. I mean, you saw that in the 2016 election. All the Wall Street money went to the Democrats, not the Republicans, not to Trump, at least anyway. Yeah. This is important rhetoric for understanding how the DSA has actually grown, and also the argument for how the radicals on the left have been effectively engaged in effective electoral politics. And this is what our side should be doing in the same way, but not with, obviously not the morally bankrupt, sick socialist message, but the libertarian message brought to a populist audience. Anyway, that's my only point with that. So anyway, there's all this whole thing is basically saying the same thing. This is why the DSA says we want to get socialists engaged in party politics. And that's, by the way, why the most prominent socialists in America right now are AOC, Bernie Sanders, because they are right. It was the most effective. Libertarians, hello, U.S. Taxpayers Party, people that say, I don't get involved in politics. This is showing you why this does work and why you have to get involved in Republican politics, because this is the vehicle. And if enough of us actually do get involved, we won't have a neocon majority. And I think we've already gotten to that point, but let's carry it through. Let's make sure that Liz Cheney does not win her race. Let's make sure Peter Meyer and Fred Upton can't win their races. Anyway.
Yes. Amen.
All right. Part 2. What kind of organization the Democrat Socialists of America are building and why? We have seen an explosive, massive growth in membership for the first time in generations. Our country has a socialist organization numbering in the tens of thousands and well on its way to 100,000 dues-paying members.
Because they're indoctrinating our children in school. Just saying.
Well, yeah, but there's other socialist organizations. Their point is our socialist organization is suddenly super effective in doing things. And also because they have normalized it through people like Rashida Tlaib and AOC. AOC more than David Bonnier, that's for sure.
You're forgetting that lady from Minnesota, the crazy one.
Oh, Ilhan Omar?
There you go.
I did not actually see that she was a documented member of DSA. Not that it really matters, because in effect she is, but I didn't see that in the Wikipedia article. Maybe
she's just a socialist.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, she's like, I'm a Leninist.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some kind of Somali. I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
We'll go with Leninist. I like it.
All right. Let me get back to where I was here.
Sorry.
With the resurgence of socialism as a political force, the question of the formation of a working class political party has once again become politically relevant. At the 2019 DSA National Convention, we began this debate with the passage of Resolution 31, Class Struggle Elections, which committed the organization to the long-term goal of building an independent working class party. Okay, this is all gibberish. The Democrats, we've talked about this already on the stream, the Democrats did not win in 2020 because of the working class. They won because of the elite liberal snobs. And to some degree, the elite liberal snobs' ability to manipulate many ordinary American voters. And maybe some other things that we don't talk about on YouTube. We recognize capitalist interests are the dominant force in setting the Democrat Party's agenda. And while the party has a working class base, party leaders are increasingly invested in an electoral strategy of recruiting wealthier and more conservative voters. Well, what does that sound like in the opposite? We recognize socialist, let me put it this way. We recognize capitalist interests are the dominant force in setting the Republican Party's agenda. And while the party has a working class base, party leaders are increasingly invested in an electoral strategy of recruiting wealthier and more liberal voters. That sounds exactly like the Liz Cheney strategy.
The Liz Cheney strategy, yes.
Yeah, that's and there's actually a term for it. I'm trying to remember who termed it. Karl Rove. Which, if you ever want to listen to a genius, you could do no better than Karl Rove, because nobody else destroyed the Republican Party faster than Karl Rove. And his theory was triangulation, which was we have the base, the pro-life base. They're ours. They're with us. They're going to vote for us no matter what we do. So let's equivocate, moderate, go to the left, go as far to the left as we possibly can until we get to some point that we're starting to actually lose the base on the right. That was what Karl Rove's theory was. And that's exactly what they did. The Democrat socialists are saying the same thing. They're saying the Democrat establishment wants to go as far to the right as possible, and our job is to drag them as far to the left as we can. That's what they're doing. So anyway, DSA says, we believe the party is an indispensable vehicle for organizing a class. Our ultimate goal is to build a working class political party. That should be our goal. It should be the working class party, the Republicans, because we believe winning the political power to reshape our society in a more just and democratic vision will require mass participation. And this is all, just commie gibberish. But the point being, what they're driving, and I'm going to go faster because, again, it's already late and we're only just a little bit through this document, but there's a big takeaway here. There is a big takeaway, which is that the radical left for a long time really espoused top-down organization. And it really was all about, well, we have different constituencies, but we're going to get all those constituencies into line with what our national agenda is. And what they're saying in this document is we need to be more varied. We need to really allow local organizations to have a lot of autonomy. We're going to provide access and financial resources to grassroots donor networks needed to fund campaigns. What they're actually talking about is not very socialistic. It's actually kind of a hands-off approach. And what's going on in, I'm not going to say Oakland County, but in a lot of other aspects of the GOP, other aspects, present company accepted, but elsewhere, you do see what certain consultants call the smart set, trying to stamp out the grassroots and saying, no, these Tea Partiers, these Ron Paulers, these Trumpsters, they don't know what they're doing. They're a bunch of crazies. Let's have a smart set agenda where we're going to tell you what we think is the winning message for 2022. And whatever you grassroots people think, well, sorry, you're wrong.
Right.
And I can think of at least, certain elements of a certain state party that is absolutely certain grassroots are wrong on a lot of things. And I don't agree with the grassroots on certain things and certain aspects of it either. But we're
becoming stronger, though, the grassroots. I don't know if I can say we're right now.
And by the way, this is nothing new. I mean, I was saying 4 years ago, it's funny how in fact, I remember my friend Shelby Emmett. I worked with her in Kerry Bentivoglio's office. She was his legislative counsel. She's now done, she's an attorney who's done a lot of litigation on free speech issues. She was with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education for a while. And she was with, I think, not Harry's, but someone else. Anyway, she's been doing tons of this stuff. I remember it saying to me 7 years ago or 8 years ago, it's amazing how if you go to the Democrat Party's meetings, like they're totally inclusive and they say, yeah, we support it. Everyone's welcome here. You can do whatever you want and blah, 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 blah. And you go to Republican meetings and they're like, no, we're doing it our way and not your way. And that's like, it's funny how the authoritarian party is not authoritarian in how they organize, whereas the Republican Party that believes in free markets and capitalism, the free exchange of ideas, is often quite authoritarian in how they run a lot of their meetings. And that's, obviously there's exceptions. It's not that way everywhere, but it is that way in some places. And even if you think it's not happening where you are, wait till you get to a contested county convention. You don't have you don't have very many brokered conventions in the GOP. I'll tell you that. In fact, I've never seen one in my entire political career.
What do you mean by that?
Brokered conventions. That's when you've got multiple factions that ultimately agree to some kind of deal-making regime. Like, for example, you've got a county convention where it's winner take all, but you've got factions that agree to proportional representation, so everybody's happy, something like that. In fact, I mean, the big broker convention theory was, when I worked for the Ron Paul campaign, was the best thing we can get is we get enough delegates from different presidential candidates to go from multiple different states. You can have a broker convention where they have to reach some kind of deal where there's concessions for whoever becomes the ultimate nominee. Maybe someone gets to make a vice presidential pick. Maybe someone gets to get party stuff in. In fact, when Reagan became the nominee, there was a big play to get Gerald Ford to be essentially his co-president at the Republican National Convention, and Reagan headed that off by picking George Herbert Walker Bush for his running mate. If you want to read the whole story about that, read A Choice Not an Echo by Phyllis Schlafly, the newer edition. She covers all that in detail. But anyway, yeah, the point being, the Democrats have strangely adopted a philosophy of letting groups and chapters and interest groups and all these specializations do whatever they want, and let the best groups come to the, let the cream rise to the top. And Republicans have a strangely authoritarian outlook. And I've seen it in my own personal county party. We've had a county chair who wants things done his way and has no tolerance for people that don't see it that way. And again, every county is different. Every district's different. Every interest group politics are different. But I mean, you see this at the RNC. You see this at the national conventions. So, and there were some concessions with Trump, I think, but nonetheless. Anyway, folks, it's gotten really late, and I don't know how much more of this I can even stomach. I mean, we're going to be here all night if we go through what's the role of the chapters, the DSA, and the NEC. I mean, these are interesting things because these are how the left organizes their grassroots.
I think we should do a part 2. This is fun.
Do a part 2?
Absolutely.
I like that idea. We've gone for a little over 90 minutes now, folks, and we've barely even touched these documents. So I'll tell you what, let's do this. Tomorrow, I will have all of these posted at rescuemichigan.com. We'll have all the links in the description, and at a sooner or later date, probably sooner, we will do part 2 and talk more about how the left operates, how the right operates, and perhaps how they should operate. In the meantime,
I love it.
I hope you guys leave a comment in the description, or leave a comment in the comment section on YouTube or Rumble or Facebook or wherever you are reading this. I think our time is limited in the social media space of YouTube and perhaps also Facebook.
Sorry, I couldn't hold back. I blame myself. It's my fault.
Well, I'm just telling you the truth. I think.
It's the truth.
We'll see. But I've also gone on a lot of side points that didn't quite pan out. So if anything I said sounded stupid, please call me out on it so I can at least address it next time.
In all fairness, I call you out on everything you say that is stupid. And I don't think you said anything stupid.
Well, let's just say I think some things I have said are going to elicit some controversy from some individuals that might see this at a later time. Let's just leave it there. And I'll be happy to address them, folks. I mean, we're here to be open with you, to be honest with you, and direct, and talk about the real nature of politics, the real nature of organization, how to be effective. I don't know any other group that really is doing that in a major way. I mean, there's political commentary on the internet, but not so much in the thick of it, I mean, you get people that have national news stories.
We represent and we break stuff down, and we don't tell, anything that's not untrue. And we'll that's what I think Rescue is all about. And that's why I like supporting Rescue.
Well, thank you. We try hard.
We try hard.
All right, folks. I just realized my chat has been scrolling down and I've been missing it. Oh, there hasn't been, we haven't, no new comments in chat lately, and we've been going a long time. And you guys might have all noticed my throat is killing me, which happens after
all day.
Huh?
You've talked all day. We've talked all day.
I have been talking all day. I am not cut out for being a lead singer. And so to be continued, folks, but I hope you've gotten something out of this. We are looking at what the Democrats are doing, what their plans are, and the best way to countervail that is to understand what they're doing. And this is, it's out in the open. And what they're really doing is not much different from this. I mean, yeah, they're going to have some trick plays here and there, But by and large, this is their national strategy. This is how they think they're going to win next year. And we can use that to see exactly where our best lines of attack are. So, all right, I hope this has been helpful. We will have another one soon.
Yes.
Thanks to all you guys for tuning in. Amber, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And everyone in chat, thanks. And for everyone watching, thanks again for all you guys do for liberty. Until next time, peace.